Photograph Matteo Lonardi and interviewer Antoinetta Russi attended Russki artists in their studios to fire their portraits and say to them on their job, the art stage and artistic censor. Lot of the artists, relying in and about Moscow and St. Petersburg, one day displayed their job in social spaces, but florid in growing censor down there, several now sense more than convenient receding to their individual studios. Abstraction artists who dwell and job in St. Petersburg, Kulkov and Dmitrieva frequently cooperate to build plant encouraged by the patterns seen in corals and craters, with color and photo collage. The pair were unborn in the age of restructuring, a period while Mikhail Gorbachev was Soviet's lead and drastic policy innovate took location. No one painter became assigned to Soviet's philosophy, and Kulkov says down there are two youthful artists present charming in which he describes as Soviet's porno. An painter and author who comes of a prominent culture household, Pepperstein grew up in a tightly knit artistic round of artists, who collected in open secret for the Soviets' epoch. In his job he creates supposed worlds wherever a large red dice in the Silent Sea is the staff of the by the government of land in 2555, in an hue of this policy and public scenery in Russia. The major distinction among the period of communism and capitalism in Russia is the relationships among human beings, he believes. Human beings loving every some less than. Up, down there was a specific comfort within art circles, human beings pay more than focus to their religious lives. A Ukraine-born Russki productivity painter and carver relying in Moscow, Kulik was one of the at first productivity artists in Russia, start out on the gateway of Moscow in the 1990s. Through his career he has proven the boundaries of art and policy militancy. His top-known productivity implicated Departure Bear on All Fours and Bark Love a Hound, to commentary on the hypocritical of America's hug of the new Russia. He leftward the nation for several years following Vladimir Putin, at first became CEO and believes the 1990s were the just year how artists had real liberty in latter Russki story. Following the drop of communism, down there were no galleries, no art foundations, no institutions or collectors, anything, he told. It was in the 1990s how the productivity artists created the area of art in Russia. Frolova is a visible painter who uses colorful rubber latex in art amateur performance and sculptures. She says her job tries to stain the boundaries among electropop piece of music and art productivity. My job is ever vivid and entertainment, since I love to add color to differently gray and dull landscapes, she told in her flat, that many faces the skyline industry area of Moscow. Her goal is to do human beings flee fact. Bartnett is an painter, planner and pop icon. He creates ridiculous, colorful and provocation costume party fantasies with theater costumes and air sculptures. He believes how the 1990s was the largest exciting period for art in Russia since the Ferris veil had go downward, but the Big Us and Europe brands had not yet introduced the nation. It modified fully, the entire mind of Russians modified, says Bartnett. Time garment outfits for an install at the Flaming Man Fest in the U.S. Kovilina is a contentious productivity painter who focuses on Russki sameness and females issues. In one of her largest noted amateur performance she wore a Russki war gear, time dancing in different men of the auditorium and potable 2 liters of Horolka in the trial. Her aim was to allocate the stencil of the Russki female in position Soviet community. Now a mom of 3, Kovilina has put her drastic art to one party and lives in a village countryside close Moscow in her man, dad and youthful boys. My successful as an painter is associated to my career in the Western. In Russia they loathe me, love any complimentary female, she says. Unborn in a Siberian job camping for Stalinist, he excited to St. Petersburg in 1966 and became implicated in the subterranean art stage. A yet life artist, all of his job features the identical objects, presenting lifetime's initial cradle, an poem, loaf, minnow, an ovum, a bottling, a cranium, and a window. He combines the objects in various compositions, encouraged by a branches of math named combinatorial analysis, that deals in accounting. Valran compares creature and painter present to the ex-Soviets epoch, behind later, down there utilized to be ideologic blood pressure. Now down there's blood pressure of the economical type and the ideologic blood pressure has as well refundable. Korina creates big-scale installations studying the conversion of Russki city spaces. Her job looks at the way Russians sense to Soviets monuments and buildings, that several human beings previous detested but now loving since they present a more than structural and less than financially competition epoch. Korina as well looks at eternal festivity in Moscow's gateway, that the government creates by setting on flower and lighting displays. He's a really old molded concept, love of heathen times, she says in her Moscow workshop. While human beings get portion in the festivity civilization, it gives permit for the government to solve all else. Osmolovsky begun his career as one of the at first productivity artists in Russia. He was portion of a team named Versus All who executed policy trimming in the previous 1990s. He is now an art prof and reviewer. He is confident how largest of the policy issues how Russia is cladding currently, inwardly and in its neighbors, are the outcome of the sluggish crash of the ex-imperial power. This issue while a big nation, love the Soviets association, collapses is how the trimming, how bring down separately will begin fight in every sum. Razumov's grandpa was authorized by Joseph Stalin to demonstrate the Canterbury Tales for Planet War II to enhance relations in the UK. He is named for his graphics illustrations but he as well paints, with socialistic reality to sarcastically criticize the existing contradictions of present Russia. He thinks how down there is a greater sameness meltdown event the planet above. While the Soviets association compressed, we were all love migrant in our own nation, he told in his grandpa's workshop, stares off of the Kremlin. Yet now I believe the sameness meltdown is overall anywhere since of the enormous technology changes event in community. Masharab is a carver who has consumable his lifetime as a hermit among the hustle of Moscow. In his hardly heated workshop in the devoted house of the Association of Russki Artists, one day the Association of Soviets Artists, Masharab has created beige-colored sculptures for many decades. They are generally humane forms, in several of his trimming now in the collections of the Tretyakov balcony, the Russki Musée and the Ludwig Musée. He sees his job as his insight of lifetime. Hyperrealist artists relying in a little city external of Moscow, they use their job to investigate the subjects of contemporary, and Korshinov focuses on believer subjects. He was portion of the crew of artists who colored murals within the Christ the Deliverer Council in Moscow. Korshinov says how with the previous 1990s which has modified largest for Russki artists is how now down there is a customer basis, because in the Soviets association just such in protection could purchase artwork. Thou could just face formal art in nominated culture rooms in big institutions or in museums, told Korshinov. Present nobody can buy he. Russki translations by Alina Grabowskite.